Hello and welcome to Peggy's Plants, coming to you from Central Florida. Today I'll be sharing with you the Monstera Adansonii, also known as the Swiss cheese plant for obvious reasons. If you're someone who's into plants that have fenestrations, which are the holes in the leaves, then the Monstera Adansonii is definitely a plant you might want to take a look at, especially given the fact that they're starting to turn up in big box stores recently. And as you can see here, I found these at Lowe's and they're only $15. I purchased mine about a year and a half ago on Amazon from Costa Farms. This is some footage from the unboxing video. I was a little bit disappointed with the size given what I paid for it, but it seemed to be a pretty healthy plant. Well, I like to let you know how things go, and I like to be, full disclosure, let you know the real deal. I had some issues with this plant. Within the first week or so, leaves were dying like nobody's business. Some people were telling me that they had mosaics disease, and I just didn't know what to do with this plant. For some reason, the leaves just kept turning yellow and dying off. So I did some trial and error with the water, with fertilizer, with everything. And so I decided to go ahead and split up this plant, propagated it, broke it into 3 different pieces, thinking that if, hopefully at least one of them would live until I could figure out what was going on. So fortunately I did that. I did lose a couple of them, but one did live, and I'm going to show you what that looks like today. And here she is. And as you can see, she's had quite a bit of growth. This plant, once it gets going, once you figure it out, is a very easy growing plant. It's a tropical perennial, so it's going to like warm, humid climate. Once I put this on a moss pole and gave it something to grow up, it really took off. It started growing like nobody's business. Now these plants can grow up to 13 feet tall or in length. They're vining. Outdoors and inside, they're typically grow between 8 and 10 feet. But again, it depends on the environment. Now mine, I just moved it from the Keys to Central Florida in recent months, and it's had some issues. As you can see, I have some bare spots down at the bottom. I think that's more of a lighting issue than anything else, because as you can see up here at the top where it's getting more light, there's a lot of growth here. It's grown off of the moss pole, and you can see those nice healthy nodes. So in this video, I will be taking some cuttings from this and show you how I propagate it as well. I found that my biggest problem with this plant initially was watering. It needed to be watered more frequently than the rest of my plants in my collection. And I like to keep things easy. So I opted to put this plant in leca, in a self-watering pot, so that I don't have to worry about the watering schedule. Now, if you don't want to use leca, or you're not someone who uses that as a growing medium, this is a plant that you would definitely want to put in your chunky aroid mix. You want it to be able to hold on to enough moisture to water the plant, but you don't want it to hold enough to rot the roots. So a chunky aroid mix is perfect for this Monstera Adansonii. I like to use water that has been run through my zero water filter to get the chemicals and things like that out of the water. You can use distilled water. Depending on where you live, tap water may be just fine, or you can just run water, let it sit out. It'll let the chlorine and stuff like that evaporate from it. But water the plant once the soil has become 75% dry. This plant is a tropical perennial, so it does like humidity. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to run a humidifier. It depends on your environment. Right now, I'm in Central Florida. It's still warm. It's been kind of rainy. As you can see, it's a little gloomy outside. So it's humid indoors without running a humidifier. I am not running mine. And as you can see here, The indoor temperature is 75 with 67% humidity. So for that reason, you will see that my humidifier isn't even on and my plant is doing just fine without it. The Monstera Adansonii prefers bright indirect light. I have mine sitting right here by this window that doesn't get any direct light, but it gets bright light all day long. And as you can see, it is growing well. Look at these nice, juicy looking nodes. The top has grown so well that I am going to go ahead and take some cuttings from this plant. It's very easy to propagate. It roots really quickly. Of course, during the growing season, which is spring and summer. In the fall, this plant does kind of go dormant. You will see slow to no growth in the cooler months. Since I am in Central Florida, I'm still going to go ahead and take this propagation because it'll do fine. And I do have a grow tent as well, but I'm going to show you another option if you're someone who doesn't have a grow tent. Now, when you're taking a cutting from these plants, like most other plants, let me get it so you can see here, you're going to want to make sure that you have some nodes because those are going to be your growth points. Just look at those healthy nodes. Yeah, this should root really, really well. And then there's another vine on this plant that I want to cut as well, which is right over here. And again, you want to make sure that you have nodes. You cut between the nodes. And any stem between the nodes is going to die off, so you don't really need to have a long stem or anything like that. But you don't want to cut too close to the node, just in case some of that stem starts to rot. You want to give yourself some leeway. Now, I am someone who loves to recycle containers. Anytime I get takeout containers or buy things that are in plastic containers that look like they could, that have a lid and would be good for propagating, I save them. Now, here I'm using a rotisserie chicken container. I love these containers because they have the nice big dome tops. So it gives plants some room to grow the leaves and everything without having to remove it. So I'm going to propagate this plant in sphagnum moss. So I just dampened the moss, wet it, squeezed out as much of the water as I could, and I'm just going to set the cuttings on top of the sphagnum moss. Now I'm simply going to place the dome top over the container and it will trap the moisture and keep the sphagnum moss just moist enough to stimulate growth from those nodes. Now this will do the same thing as a grow tent. It will keep the inside somewhat warm and it will keep it humid, so it'll be kind of like a tropical environment. Once these plants take off, I'm going to plant them right here at the bottom of my Adansonii and cover up the leggy part. Well, that's about it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have great success finding and growing your Monstera Adansonii. Take care. Hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.